What's up guys, welcome back to another video. It's Aleksi here, and in this video I want to talk about God, and when you're pursuing the truth, coming to kind of like understand that everything in your reality is a mirrored reflection, and God orchestrates these things for you to understand yourself better. And this is where you need to also not have self-deception, in the sense that like you're lying to yourself that you don't have problems, or that God orchestrates certain people in your life and events and things to happen that kind of show you where you have a problem, or they expose like something hidden within you, like they stir something up from inside you that God is trying to bring up so you can heal it. You just have to be open in your heart and open in general to God, and to these orchestrations for them to happen, and for them to to learn something from them. If you just ignore the orchestration or thing that happened, you can't actually learn anything from it. You can't apply it to the truth, and you can't take anything away from it home. And when you actually take something away from some kind of situation you're in, and you always try to apply the truth in your practice, this is where you actually find what lies dormant, in a sense, within you, like all these like corruptness and any issues you have in your I wouldn't say like behavior exactly like outwardly, but like what kind of manifests perhaps in an outward. It could be as simple as like maybe you get really hot-headed easily, that manifests outside, from the inside out. And this is something God is trying to bring out, is like a situation that really triggers you and something within you, and triggers this thing that God knows is inside you, that could easily be a problem that needs to be healed and cleared out from you, and you need to kind of rebel against it and understand it, come to know the truth. And when you pray to God and seek the truth and practice it, you'll gradually start overcoming these problems, like being hot-headed, lying, betraying, etc., like whatever it is for you that you have to deal with on your faith journey. And when you're starting out, you usually have a lot of problems that God needs to heal. A lot of us, obviously are extremely corrupted when we start, so we have a lot of problems that we need to realize, and we need to reflect on the past and mistakes. And sometimes God brings up odd things like memories even, or anything else. You could see this maybe in your dreams even. Maybe it's a nightmare or something else comes up, and God can show us in different ways what we're kind of lacking, or where we're lacking, and where we have issues. And this is where you need to understand that everything in your reality that you encompass in your life is God trying to show us here, and trying to teach us. You don't need to try to somehow comprehend it as like God punishing you or whatever. It's never about that. It's about God's love and discipline, and understanding that He's like there to prune these things and judge these things out of us so we can become better. And it's for His love, so we can become we can become holier, we can be saintly decent, we can have proper behavior that God requires of us to have. We can have the inner dispositions that God requires us to have, to be good people possessing normal humanity. And to achieve this, obviously we have to listen to God and submit to God's orchestrations. And actually, when you're in those, even if you submit, but if you don't actually take anything away from the orchestration, then you also are missing here, because you do need to think. You don't just submit, you also need to self-contemplate when these things happen, and cooperate with the Holy Spirit and God, and see what you can learn from these situations, and not just be idle. Because if you're idle, it's kind of like taking action on a business. If you don't actually take any action on a business, how is it going to grow, right? If you don't take any action on your healing path with your faith and trying to heal, then how are you going to heal? If you don't yourself contemplate, how are you going to contemplate? How are you going to come to understand yourself if you're not pondering on God's words, what God is trying to teach you, and everything else? And this is something you do every day. It's simple. Like, you're in a situation, you find something about yourself, or you start reflecting, what is God trying to show me here, through the situation or person or whatever. Like you try to, it is a little bit of a, you could say sometimes a chess game, in the sense of like, you have to like figure out through these like clues or like things, hints that God gives you in your life. And you have to get the full picture. Sometimes it's very obvious if it's really simple, and sometimes it's not very obvious. It really depends. If it's like a major disposition issue and corruption, then yes, you might have issues. If it's a smaller issue, you know, something that's like maybe it's a smaller thing, habit or mistake you make, it might be harder to notice, you know, those smaller things that are inside you, because you know they're obviously going more under the radar, that are hard to detect. So you really need to pay attention to what God is trying to teach you every day, and what you learn from God's words as well. And you know, combining those two things is where you can come to understand these things. But yeah, I hope this video helps you understand when God is trying to teach you something, and that you know, you need to pay attention to also what's happening in your reality, and you know, what is God orchestrating in your reality to understand for you. And when you pay this attention, you can actually learn a lot quickly when you combine all these things. And you know, you come before God. You know, meditate also can help with your healing. When you meditate before God and seek God's light and enlightenment, God can help you heal and clear these things out of your system. He can bring things into your mind also that are like something you need to heal, or maybe it's like an idea, like I need to forgive this person, or I need to let go of this habit, or whatever. It could be like these things, ideas come into your mind, because a lot of ideas do come from the divine into our mind also. And you know, intuitional strikes like, okay, this is one thing I'm doing wrong, but if you ignore that idea, then you're kind of ignoring the advice you're getting, you know, in a sense, from God. So you need to really pay attention to these things when you're on your path and trying to heal with God and trying to become better as a person, more normal and good. Thank you for watching. Want to watch the description and do the description. I hope this helps.